on the point that you made, Alk, like if this is a win for LNG, like this winning streak is probably going to extend to a lot of the other teams in Nirvana. Like this is the top team. A lot of people are anticipating this is probably going to be one of the strongest teams in this group. So to see them start off with a win here, I think would inspire confidence that they can continue that trend going forward, as the bans are basically complete here. We see the Rise taken away, Seraphine as well, so we're not going to be seeing Ashe Seraphine whatsoever so far. Karma as well, so Karma Ezreal is off the board. I'm trying to think here. Yeah, Jarvan would be the next natural big pairing that you could go for. I mean, Ambessa is still up here if you want to try and maybe slam that. You still do have some mid laners that I think you could look for blind, but okay, I thought he was actually, I thought he insta-locked that for a moment, but nope. Vi as well. I think if you decide to lock this, it does kind of put LNG in a position where they probably need to go like the Corki Nami, as Corki is traditionally the answer into the Vi, just being able to Valkyrie back away and pull the Vi deeper into the weeds and make that follow-up from the rest of EDG that much harder.
Do you just immediately go for, you know, you're saying Corki Nami? I know we've had some more Lucians here kind of pop up here and there, so Lucian Nami could also be the play if 1xN kind of wants to be a little bit more skill expressive. We are going to see obviously the mid laners maybe take a bit of a backseat here, at least early on in the first phase. Is there anything that in particular that we should be either looking forward to, or do you think that there's different priorities here that we should be kind of reaching for first?
It's tough to say, like, for mid lane. Like, obviously, you've still got, like, some decent blinds. Like, you can still go for things like the Ahri. You can still go for things like the Annie. I'm a personal Annie hater. I really hate that character. But, I do think that, given LNG's very short-range comp by nature so far, that could maybe be a trend that they continue. As, yeah, that Nami Corki will be locked in. EDG, I think if you decide to slam the Aurora here, we'll probably see a support lock-in to try and answer the Nami, just so that you can keep the possibility of that flex alive. And Nautilus is open if you want more engage with the Vi and pick potential with the Vi. I think that that is a pretty good answer. Nautilus is also very good at being able to, I think, take advantage of the short range, like we just said, of the Corki Nami and look for those advantageous 2v2 positions.
If we're gonna pick Nautilus, we might as well just have Parukia get back on stage.
I mean,
let that brother come off the bench for one game, you know? Just like, I know it says Joy here, just real quick be like, oh, you know, Joy has to go to the bathroom real quick, and then Parukia just kind of sits in his chair and waits for the admins to see if they'll pull him off. This is gonna be a Jace, so we know kind of where the solo lanes are going to be. There can be a swap, right? Aurora can move into top lane. You can have Jace mid. We've had a couple of those. But this will actually be Angel's first Aurora game this season here in 2026. And I think you are now in a bit of a pretty sticky quagmire if you are EDG. You're playing Jace into Sion. Not my favorite.
Yeah, and Jace generally, I think, opens up like a lot of action to be present toward the top side, because similar to what we were saying in like game number 1, like the kill threat for a lot of the meta picks in mid and bot are very low, especially in the opening minutes of the game. Jace though is not really in that same category. Like, he's very squishy, he has very little peel and very little CC, so the opportunity to like dive a Jace or just to take advantage of him early is very present if LNG can go for a pretty decent damage dealer here in the jungle. I mean, you've still got things up and available. Like, I think that the Nefiri could potentially be something that Croco wants to look for. The Nocturne is something that he could look for. A lot of the big meta picks have been taken away, as Nefiri is actually also going to be taken away, so that will not be available. I'm not sure I fully subscribe, though, to Croco going like a full tank such as Skarner. I think you need something with a little bit of damage here.
It could be maybe his, maybe we get that Ambessa, right? He hasn't really pulled it out this season quite yet. Yeah. That'd always be something that we're looking for. Honestly, anytime I see a Jace, I always have to be worried that there's a Malphite on the enemy team. I'm very worried always about that champion existing. But right now, LNG, it seems like they are going for more of a pick-and-play kind of comp. They're going to have this Corki and Nami to provide range and provide good standoff damage, which is going to kind of be in contrast to the Jace on the opposite side. You could go Galio. I'm not sure if I'm super excited about a Mel. The opportunity to kind of rebuttal some of those shockwaves is cool, but I don't know if EDG have really given me enough answers to say, yeah, Mel feels like it's going to be strong here.
I mean, it does limit what EDG can pick from here on out because those rebuttal opportunities will be plentiful if you pick champions where abilities can actually be rebutted. So it limits what EDG can pick here, but also it's generally just a good lane counter into the Aurora because of how heavily you outrange the champion and how easily you can bully Aurora. It's very difficult for Aurora to find a full combo onto you. And the Lucian, you were just talking about this Alk as a possibility for 1xn and missing, but Leave and Jue are going to lock in the Lucian Melio here. So some 2v2 power given over to them. Maokai, again, I want some damage for jungle. I wouldn't be a fan of this. That would be really fun. Don't play with my heart. That's not even funny. Him even hovering that got my like my cortisol levels, like they went through my the roof.
All right. Wanted a damage jungler. I don't really think Wukong is that, but how are we feeling about these competitions? Another draft where EDG have essentially no front line, but they do have dedicated crowd control for some champions.
I feel like this is just another game where for LNG, like the fault of winning and losing is going to solely rely on 1xn and missing. Like, I do think you have a lot of really effective CC and frankly tankiness just on the top side. Corki is a very short range ADC, so he's not really going to be able to like free hit from super far away akin to another champion like Caitlyn. He's got to get into the thick of fights. So the more tanks he has on his team, the more bodies he has to walk in front of him, the better. And I do think in that regard, LNG have successfully drafted a formidable front line and just being able to buy space and time for the Corki to dish out damage. My biggest concern definitely has to be things like the Vi, right? Like, this is instant lockdown. If you use that Valkyrie and you time it, and you misjudge the timing on it, you're straight up dead. I do not think that there are a lot of very good save buttons on the side of LNG to shore up your mistakes, but they can accentuate your strengths as a champion.
Well, Coach Clearlove obviously is putting a lot of faith into his jungler in Xiaohao, while Coach Edgar over on LNG seeming like they want to get a good front to back here. This will be game number 2. Can LNG take the 2-0 sweep, or is EDG going to finally fight back? Let's get onto the Rift.
全军出击！
You think there's like different, there's like a different Jumbotron culture over there? Because I don't know, anytime I see someone on like the Jumbotron at a sporting event over here in the US, they freak out. Like, they absolutely lose their minds. That brother was just staying on his phone. He did not care.
He hit the gyos. That's all that mattered. Right? He hit him. He was still doing them. As soon as you said Jumbotron, Elio, who was a few feet to my right, just made an audible. I don't think there is. Some people, like you're mentioning, as soon as they get shown on the big screen, they start freaking out and they're like, oh my god. Sometimes we do see that. I don't think it's that much different. I think humans in general, as soon as they see themselves
we love attention.
Put on blast, they're just like, sometimes they get freaked out, sometimes they get excited, sometimes they get a little bit shy. So right now it is junglers going to opposite sides of the map, but it is Croco who went for Raptors red buff Krugs. Does this mean we're going to see an early invade onto Vi? Or potentially, I don't really want to see a Wukong dive at level 3, but if we're already hammering away at their resources, I think it's okay.
I think that Croco understands the importance of this Vi relative to the EDG comp, so any kind of advantage he can get in terms of camps, or at least denying and delaying the Vi from hitting level 6, like, he is absolutely going to take that. Add in that he has priority, and I actually subscribe to this invade. I think that this is good. He doesn't get the big wolf, does get the small ones. You can see actually forces Xiaohao to back away from interfering with this bot lane. So that's what he wanted. That's what he got. And that's a good, successful invade for Croco. It is going to also force Xiaohao to cross over. And I do not think that there is a world where they can actually dive sheer, though. He is at about half HP. Maybe that changes.
Yeah, I mean, if Jace, currently who is in ranged form, maybe kind of does a little bit more damage, maybe that's something that they could look for. His leave, popping the barrier, or sorry, that is 1xN using that summoner spell. They're getting rather chunked out here, and not a ton to use to try to sustain themselves back up. This ward that is in Tribrush will spot out the Wukong, so not going to be too much of an angle here for EDG. I think this is just Croco trying to secure an early recall for his bottom lane, who are going through Armageddon currently.
I think 1xN just really wants to buy that coal on first back and make sure that... We saw that kind of similar to game number 1 where both ADCs opted to go for that very early on. If 1xN can get that quicker, I think it sets him up nicely, but... Oh yeah, it is actually going to be the tier. You know, sometimes I forget that Manamune is an item. I don't know why. I never.
It's because you're a jungler. Probably. You never buy that.
Yep.
Ever.
Nope. We don't need items, or we don't need mana items. We get blue buff.
You also get jungle privilege. It's one of my favorite phrases, man. Jungle privilege. Just walk into
exists.
any jungle. Yeah, and you get 1 million resources, and then you get a red buff, and you're just like, cool. I basically have a free Warmogs. This feels very good. I'm feeling OP again. So. Not much to say, another slightly quieter early game, but at least we're getting more action. We're getting champions that are getting at least close to lethal thresholds.
Yeah, ZDZ is basically just going to try and, I think, push in this wave. He might go for a back as soon as it crashes. He's probably going to try and go for the plate, proc the newly stylized Demolish here in 2026. I'm 10 years early. But... See Croco moving toward the bot side. Again, I really think that a lot of this early game is going to hinder on these AD carries, these very short-ranged AD carries, getting ahead and being able to maneuver around these future fights.
We are seeing Smalley being eked out. It isn't being reflected in the creep score, but I think that Leaf is taking much better trades, even has the recurve bow, which is going to give him a little bit more damage on those Lucian Lightslinger passives. So you can see that the sustain of Nami isn't really doing all that much. I am a bit worried for what this Melio is going to do, because a ton of Melio's kit is kind of based around being able to deny.
There's so many knockups too. You can't do that with your ult doesn't work on knockups. So like LNG have the 1 CC that Melio ult is essentially useless.
You know what it does technically allow for you to do if you're able to land it is if you hit the ultimate or the Breath of Life in the middle of getting ulted, or any of these knockups, it means that you can flash. That's as good as it's gonna get, honestly. Yeah. You're out of the crowd control out of that one, but we're really kind of grabbing at straws, or grasping at straws here for trying to find value for Melio outside of just the 2v2 aspect. And Lucian is strong, yes. I just want, is this going to be Kraken Slayer? I've been Kraken Slayer, when it was really, really strong last year, I was a really big proponent of seeing it on Lucian. It kind of got phased out as people were looking more at Essence Reaver and
Storm Razor too.
Blades at the time. Yeah, Storm Razor, especially this season, has definitely gotten a lot more exciting.
Yeah, Storm Razor, I talked to Yanni about this, has been kind of the go-to recently for a lot of Lucians, but Kraken does have value. We did highlight how potent the LNG top side is going to be as far as tanks, so anything that you can build to try and weaken them a bit is going to come in handy later down the line. That's kind of what Vi is for as well, having that denting blows, being able to lower that armor. So I think the extended fights will be really good for EDG, but the problem is, like, the burst from a late game Corki and the burst from a late game Mel, especially if BuLLDog can get ahead, is no joke. And without really any one solid frontliner for EDG, like, that frontline becomes a lot more important to factor in the later we get into this game.
We'll see what happens for Grubs. Typically, we usually will see supports move in advance to try to play for this objective, but with how intrinsically tied these 2v2s are to each other in terms of what they're able to accomplish, I am hard-pressed to imagine that Nami and Melio are going to move away from their Lucian and Corki. And I wonder if we play on these kind of small timers here, because Lucian went for the Time Warp Tonic and actually has the Adaptive Force potion. If you use this in the middle of a fight, especially if Vi, who's already pathing down, that opens up a lot of space for you to get a sudden burst in terms of a kill or even try to activate something. Aurora even just pretending like she's going to fog bot side makes you have to be worried as 1xN missing.
Yeah, for sure. 1xN missing. Also going to have the extra big boy elixir at level 6, but we can see both junglers are pivoting toward that top side. Prio is relatively even between both lanes here in top, but I think the big disadvantage for EDG is they're going to have to deal with a Scion who, with ultimate, can just immediately deliver themselves toward that fight if need be. But EDG are first to that objective, and they're playing like it.
By the way, it's also on Vision this entire time. They knew this, and Sheer went for kind of a weird position. He went into the top side alcove, so he wouldn't have been able to move first for this play, even if they wanted to. LNG, with having Vision on the play and maybe some confusing movements from EDG's solo lanes, somehow get themselves 2 grubs. Do we think this is going to change the temperament of this game very much?
I think Leave's temperament is starting to thin here as he goes culling the bot side, but I feel like just having like the grubs for a Scion is inherently super valuable because we expect this guy to be like a side lane menace. I also think that it is going to help propel the bot lane threats that we've been kind of gassing up further in this game. So both teams managed to get at least 1 grub. LNG obviously getting the second one, or the last one rather. So if this can lead to them like going for a dragon fight and then getting plates off the back of that, I feel like that value is definitely going to show itself.
All right, Wusa. Breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. 9.5 minutes, nothing's going on. I mean, this time at least, EDG did get the first dragon, so we're at least looking better in that aspect. We went to all 7 in our first game. We'll see if that is a reoccurring theme here tonight for Nirvana. But, I mean, first items are not quite done, but we are getting to that point. 80 carry quests are going to be completed soon, as Leave already taking 2 plates means that he's almost done with this. He's going to get an influx of gold, might finish his Kraken Slayer before the next dragon spawns to be able to find a recall. They're just going to chase each other. Is this really a kill? Denting blows flash. Maybe with the flashes it turns into something. But there's also pressure in mid lane. Mel having to use that golden hour to get a little bit of damage onto Angel and Xiaohao. So topside Scuttle very firmly in control of LNG, and this is just another small advantage going over to them.
Very excessive movement there from Croco. I mean, he finds the jump onto Xiaohao, but commits both the Cyclone and the Flash. Of course, that Flash is returned by Xiaohao also having to burn the same summoner, but still has that cease and desist, and there's a dragon in about 30 seconds. So if EDG are first to that play, if they're actually going to be around the river before LNG, they could certainly try to punish any missed positions or face checks. It just feels like Croco isn't going to be able to get much from that aggressive play. So there's nothing really on the top side to be taken, and there's nothing you're really denying from the Vi at the same time.
Well, maybe we can kill Vi, right? Like maybe if Vi walks in the bot side for this dragon and Nami gets the ultimate, or Sheer is able to lock her down, maybe we can pray, we can dream if you are an LNG fan. But right now it is just a stalemate between 2 teams, and 1,000 gold lead, and a lot of it here for ZDZ. Yeah, this is the Jason to Scion matchup, which I think at this point is starting to get to that point where you're not really having too much fun. There's a completed plated steel caps and a chain vest already done.
I do think that it is going to get easier for Sheer, though. Just the more tank items and armor items that he builds, like the harder it's going to be for ZDZ to harass you. And I think that sustain is going to open more doors for maybe Croco to visit toward the top side and look to capitalize off of that matchup. Because ZDZ, similar to Game 1, has been very aggressive in his positioning throughout the lane. It hasn't really been punished. This is something that we kind of talked about as far as shortcomings for LNG in game number 1. ZDZ was constantly pushing up with that Anivia. It was never really, we never really saw any visits from Croco or BuLLDog, or even missing to try and rectify the continuously growing gold lead in that lane. So maybe we'll see that here in game number 2, and I think it would do a great service toward LNG's game, because if you set this Jace behind, that's a major point of damage that EDG are relying on just completely evaporated.
Well, Quax, I'm going to push up my proverbial glasses here, and I'm going to point to the top left of the screen, at least part of the HUD. Who won game number 1?
See, now that is very true.
Yeah, results-based analysis says that top lane leads do not matter. Continuously, we've seen from Riot that top lane is a role that is very difficult to balance for competitive play because it does not have a dragon on that side of the map. And the last time we gave him 6 scrubs, the game got very weird. So that also did help.
I hope
with
we
having
never return to that.
Yeah, that is the scuttle being completed by Croco, so they'll have that small mini objective. It seems like EDG really want to look for something. Yeah, leave. We got the culling down. We do lose our flash, but we didn't get much done for it. There was also a rebuttal there from BuLLDog that just threw it back in his face.
And this is where I think Croco is kind of kicking himself for burning that flash earlier. It is like 3/4 of the way off of cooldown, so there will be an obvious window to exploit Leaf burning his flash, but it's going to be really hard to get the drop off on this Lucian without, I think, having that flash, and then, you know, the natural gap close of the E plus the ultimate to get on top of the Lucian. He'll definitely see you coming in most case scenarios, but maybe not from this angle. He goes over the wall.
Look at 1xN. They just go immediately onto Leave. Barrier is down, Flash is down, and EDG, Leave is gone. That'll be some turret plates being gained here for LNG with the first blood.
Yeah, really good positioning there from Croco. He manages to put himself next to a wall, goes over it. Leave goes just a little too far forward, and the Cyclone is enough CC to burn him down. First blood over to LNG, and like you said, more gold over to 1xN, so he is going to be able to start working on that man-immune second item for himself, and the scaling quirky damage, just a looming threat that EDG are not looking forward to dealing with. This also is going to mean that on redeploy, LNG should be primed and ready to look for this Herald if they want to in about 10 seconds.
They're on a massive power spike right now. It's Triforce and Imperial Mandate. That already was going to set themselves up for success in comparison to the Echoes of Helia for Jway. And also, I just want to note the massive amount of jungle propaganda that I just heard, that Leave was too far up and he's underneath his turret.
Yep.
I don't... What do you mean I'm too far up? This is my mid-tier 2, or my mid-tier 1. What do you mean I'm too far up? I got engaged by my Raptors. Whatever. EDG, they'll have first say onto the Herald. Croco is on this side of the map. They've even brought over ZDZ. They want to completely muscle out LNG from the top side.
Yeah, I like this capitalization here from EDG. We did say that LNG off resets could look to go for the Herald, but Croco, not having that ultimate, I think does remove one of your... honestly, one of your only sources of, especially with the Scion not being in the area, you really have to rely on that Cyclone to get a fight started. So Croco without that means that it's just very awkward for LNG to play the fight, so they opt to avoid it. And now that the Herald is up here for EDG and claimed here for EDG, they could try and use this in the next minute or so to draw pressure to a lane, force LNG out of the river, because this dragon is coming up in about 45 seconds, and EDG, even though we have been criticizing them, they have been in control of the Drake so far. This would be sole point.
Yeah. You saw there was some inklings of a play. EDG started to move into top side, because if they catch BuLLDog, you won't have the Vi ultimate, but you'll certainly set yourselves up with a numbers advantage going into that dragon. They instead call it off, unsure if Croco had gotten vision down. If they see Vi, Mel's going to be super safe and still has flash, so would have been under very little threat here. It is EDG first to the river, but maybe with the Scion already teleporting to this play, maybe LNG can try to stop this stacking. It is an Ocean Soul, which against some of the chip damage, like the Nami and the Corki were pointing out, could actually be a very good way of counteracting LNG's strengths.
Leave, though, this is very similar to the game-ending team fight we saw from game number 1, at least positioning-wise. Alk Battery. Leave was isolated from the team, does manage to join up with them, but they're still split on two fronts. You can see that Angel and Xiaohao are divided from the rest of the team. They're going to have to try and group up together, I think. Otherwise, Sheer is going to be able to find a good angle along with Croco.
I mean, look at Sheer. He doesn't have his teleport shield anymore, but he is really far in advance. And I love the way we're using this Herald. Put it inside of this fight. Look for something. Nami Ultimate's going to come across multiple members, but
Drake.
he just jumped into the Rift Herald, and he's not able to smite it at that point. Sheer will go down to start with a culling. They're trying to get knockups. Look at where Xiaohao is. It's an engagement to put him right next to BuLLDog. A rebuttal will save him for the time being. Multiple knockouts from Croco. Can they find any last kills? Leva's going to walk forward, tries to kill 1xN. He's going to flash over the wall, and a Shock Blast from ZDZ will finalize the kill onto Missing. Croco will find Angel, but EDG, they lose the Dragon, and they don't get much more with the Rift Herald spawn.
Yeah, Soul Point denied. LNG's health bars are blinking, and you can see that EDG want to try and push for more, look for some plates, but they're not going to risk it. They're going to back instead. Kills also basically identical. They are 2-2 apiece. And I really want to get a look at this play again, because Xiaohao goes in, I think understands that if he dies here, the Dragon is just lost, so he decides to get in the Herald where the Dragon is just lost anyway.
Yeah.
And does have a good re-engage here onto BuLLDog, but the damage from LNG is very punishing. I think Croco had a good angle here. I think if he turned sooner onto Angel, maybe they could have saved Missing's life here because he would have gone down quicker, but he does end up going down. But it's just, I feel a one fight at the end of the day for LNG because they deny that soul point.
There you go. So at least they buy themselves 5 minutes. Whether or not that is consequential to the game, only time will tell. Some movement in the top side as there is a contest for the scuttle and seeing if EDG can poke and prod LNG to find one more kill. There's a lot of summoner spells down, and that's where Vi can find a lot of success.
Yeah.
Can leave, just standing his ground on the 2v2 in mid.
Now, I think no turret has fallen yet at this point in the game. Almost 20 minutes in, and neither team has claimed first brick. You can see that ZDZ is trying to push Sheer off of the wave and claim that gold for himself, but this is kind of what we talked about, just the nature of this matchup where Sheer is getting ever more tanky as the minutes pass by. ZDZ does have the Black Cleaver, so he's actually not opting for the lethality build, but that Black Cleaver, to be honest with you, isn't enough to really dissuade the Scion from moving at this point. So that's going to be a tough side lane threat to deal with if you are EDG, at least until you get like your LDRs or leave and maybe a couple more armor pen items across the board.
Oh hey, picture in picture. That is Joy's flash. Not much more to add. There was a Muramana completed for ZDZ, and that'll upgrade itself, so you are decently strong. You do have a dragon in 2 minutes, but Quax, I want to ask, do you feel like this is shades of game number 1? Obviously, EDG didn't have, or had a much bigger lead at this point in the game, but they didn't have the dragon stacking on their side, at this point anyway, and this is feeling very reminiscent to the start of this series, honestly.
It definitely is. It's a much quieter game than what we're used to here in the LPL, but you know, we kind of talked about it in game number 1 where we thought it favored EDG because they've got the Yunara Lulu, the super scalar bot lane duo. This game, it feels like both teams, I feel, are somewhat being actively harmed by not trying to press the needle further with this game, because I mean, you've got a very apparent mid-game timer, especially as the Lucian, where you can just really dominate in fights, and that mid-game is slowly but surely passing by. So I think EDG are going to have a harder time navigating leave around these team fights. So I don't actually think that the slower pace of game is very beneficial to them here for this match. And they're the one that wants to get things beneficial for them because they're down in the series. They need to win this to get us to a game 3. So just the fact that they aren't being aggressive enough, I think, is a very strange thing to say given who their AD carry is.
They traded the first turrets. LNG will lose their bot tier 1, but gain themselves the mid tier 1 of Edward Gaming. Aurora's going to push that final wave top lane and probably look for a recall using the
Dragon
alternator and maybe get them close to what could potentially be a Shadow Flame. There it is. That is the completion. Teleport as well coming in from Sheer. I wanted to note Leave's build because he did go for this Kraken Slayer and the Hex Optics, it means that he's more focused on getting those auto attacks down instead of going for a burst build that is really reliant on having culling cooldown and being able to Gatling gun the opponents away. 5-on-5s, I think poke, we're looking at Jace versus Mel, and right now it is priority coming in from mid lane. Very risky fight here for EDG.
Yes, Xiaohao is over the wall. Angel's looking for a flank TP. I'm wondering what Sheer is going to do here. He has the opportunity to maybe just send it. Angel wouldn't be able to link up in time. They have vision of him in that bush, or at least they did. They know he's there. LNG, how are they going to play this trap that EDG are trying to set for them?
Oh, no Vault Breaker available for Xiaohao, at least for the time being. Sheer's going to walk forward. A rebuttal has been issued. BuLLDog will send a Shock Blast that takes a large majority of ZDZ's health down.
Ooh.
Dragon goes over to LNG, and now the fight looks like it's breaking out. Angel's trying to squeeze on one side. Leave is letting it
Good
culling
block
through,
there by Sheer.
look at them. They are just squeezing on the opposite side of this fight. Flashes are coming through. BuLLDog doesn't go down, and Missing will finally get taken by Leave. But it's a really messy fight. The top side of EDG is dead. They're trying to find something. Can Leave get it? Yes, but at what cost? You give it over the Dragon, and Sheer is untouchable in this fight.
Again, it's a one fight for LNG. Sure, they don't get as many kills. Sure, EDG walk out with some more gold, and Angel might be able to claim this turret in the mid lane. It looks like Sheer will actually be there in time to stop that from happening. But the big thing is no Dragon Soul.
Kill him! Kill him, Sheer! Yes! Walk him down. I love me some Scion gameplay. As an AD carry, I love just watching this champion walk up to me, have 1 million damage. It doesn't matter that Emilio has a shield. Oh, it's mattering. Oh, it's slightly mattering a little bit more than I thought it would.
All right.
Jway had to get it, and Angel's laughing in the player cam. It was a rather expensive play all in all, but still, you kept your mid alive, and you don't lose the mid tier 1. You know, we're really scraping by, I think.
Mid-tier 1 very, very vulnerable being taken down once we go back to live. But I want to look at this play again. So Valkyrie gets put on here by 1xN. Smite is really close. Angel kind of whiffs the ultimate as well. And I just feel like Sheer does such a good job at being able to tank up and provide an opening here for Croco. Croco does go, I think, a little too far. I think that the target selection was very difficult to get onto Leave, and Jace, or not Jace, Lucian is obviously your main target. So LNG not being able to immediately snap engage onto the Lucian, I think, was what allowed EDG to get a couple more kills under their belt for that game, or for that fight. But again, the big takeaway is no Dragon Soul for EDG. This game is just like game number 1. We are 2-2 apiece, and Alk, I legitimately think that there is a non-zero chance we actually do go to the 3-3. We're going to fight number 7 for the Dragons.
No, I mean, cool, great. I'm glad I get to have more play-by-play reps. The usefulness of that, I think we'll have to discuss at a later time. Another flank potentially coming on through for Xiaohao. No sight of this Vi quite yet from LNG. I think what a big portion of that fight showed us as the audience and as the viewer is maybe the lack of pressure that this, honestly, this Aurora gives right now. She's supposed to be this massive burst mage. If you get her multiple passives down, that's a big portion of her kit, but no find. And
wait,
if they can't catch him out, the Xiaohao is just dead. And that might just be the Baron that LNG were looking for.
That's definitely Baron. I mean, there's no jungler available. There's not really a way for EDG to get even into this pit. It's the Baron that doesn't have like the horizontal lines for you to go in through that way, and they're gonna have to get through Sheer. This Scion is so damn tanky.
What else they can do? I mean, Sheer is getting ripped apart. That guy is dead. And observers, please show me this Baron HP right now. They can't get into the pit. There's no smite. But look at Angel right now. He's on the back line. Missing is getting bursted out. The Baron is almost gone. Croco will get the smite. How many members of LNG can escape? Leave will take down BuLLDog. We'll see another pick here around the pit. There's Croco going down. 1xN is the next one to fall. Missing is more than likely going to get taken by Angel. And that is a 5-for-1 trade. EDG will neutralize this Baron attempt from LNG.
I spit out my water and I'm choking. Holy moly.
Don't worry. Both teams are choking right now. We're in a 1-1-0 series.
This game is crazy, Alk. This series is crazy. What's going on? EDG. They capitalize off of the fight from LNG. Trying to go for the Baron, but Sheer, not as tanky as we thought he was. He gets blown up. LNG have no front line. And then EDG, they open the floodgates, and they are able to just tear LNG asunder now. Dragon up in 30 seconds. And EDG off with the resets and the Baron-empowered recalls. They're going to be first to the river. And I think they might finally claim control of these Drakes after 10 minutes.
All right, Infinity Edge done here for Leave. He had LDR in that last fight. Sheer is all armor right now. He has the single Megatron cloak, so I'll give him that. But Aurora, maybe Caster cursed it, maybe Angel just decided, maybe this is the time we're actually going to blow up Sheer. Level 16 Scion, and it'll be LNG first to the river, at least from mid lane. I'm still super worried, because so far in this series, I think that Croco has had the better smites, at least in being able to get them in the clutch here. Attacking from top side, Wukong is looking for a flank. Angel is doing the same on this Aurora, but he's completely spotted.
Yep.
Can they find anything? There's that Between Worlds. 1xN has to flash out.
Angel!
There we
Angel!
go. If Angel gives himself up, it doesn't matter. That's soul point here. Let him live. Flash, whatever. That's one kill. EDG, let's try to get out of the pit right now. Leave with the one advantage that we were able to grab.
That is absolutely worth it for EDG. They get the Dragon. They only lose one for their troubles. Angel making them, you know, play Ring Around the Rosie with the ultimate. He's going back and forth between the Between Worlds circle, and that stalls them out long enough. LNG, though, going to be able to get second brick here in the mid lane. So inner turret completed, but I'm really struggling to find ways where this is going to actually matter in the grand scheme of things, because look at the side lanes, Alk. They haven't even taken the outer turrets. So how much vision can you actually get from two mid lane turrets without considering the side lane? Sheer, with an ultimate, completely whiffs, but A for effort.
If you're LNG, what you're doing right now is you're taking maybe your team manager, maybe your coach, maybe even the referee behind you. You're asking them for a little bit of tape. Some electrical tape will do. You put them on both sides of the minimap, so only mid lane exists. And if you're doing that, LNG saying we're winning the game. We've got more turrets in mid lane than you do. And LNG, thankfully for EDG, they don't have to worry about that, because like you mentioned, they've got the top tier 1, they've got the mid and bottom lane tier 1. BuLLDog is spotted thanks to some great vision. Croco's going to try to defend his blue buff here. I don't think it's going to turn into too much. Maybe we just start fighting, right? 1xN and Missing are already in the position. Talked about clutch smites. Croco yet again is able to come out clutch, and he'll grab his blue buff for now.
Yep. But side of Croco, I mean, he's going to have to be clutch on those Dragon Smites from here on out, because one more and EDG are going to get that soul. We highlighted the very big usefulness of having an Ocean Soul in a game where poke is pretty relevant in this game, and I think for the side of EDG, being able to sustain those rockets, being able to sustain the Mel poke, and being able to prolong these fights to the point where the front line isn't as much of a problem for EDG, that's really the big advantages that I'm looking at for this team to try and press if they can get this objective in their hands. And so far, they're having the superior setup. It's a very, very, at this point in the game, small gold lead for EDG of 2.6k, but they have just the better vision around this bot side.
Angel is, even if they don't win tonight's series, I think Angel has provided so much pressure. I know that I maybe admonished him for a small portion of this game, but even going back to game number 1, I thought that the Azir was trying, at the very least, to find game-winning plays. Didn't always end up in his favor, but EDG look at least a little bit better around the solo lanes right now, and Leave is super, super strong. I mean, 4-item Lucian, if he can get time to actually properly get through a rotation of spells and auto attacks in a fight, you're going to just dominate your opponent. I mean, you look at Jue as well. You already have the Ardent Sensor, which has been completed for a while. This guy's going to completely turn around a fight.
I mean, but we all know that the biggest enemy to Leave is Leave himself and his inhibitions to constantly go in. So we'll have to see if that ends up giving a similar result to game number 1. It doesn't look like it is, though. I think that Leave has done a relatively good job at being able
Here
to
it comes now.
reserve himself. I know that this is probably me cursing it completely. I mean, we're about to find out. It's a little bit over a minute until the next dragon spawns, but this could very well be the last dragon that we see of the game. If EDG get this, they're going to feel so much more confident to take these fights and not worry about the front line.
I'm looking at the minimap. Croco gets spotted by a singular control ward placed on the Raptor pit. If he had gotten that flank off, whether that was into the mid lane, over the Raptor pit, or otherwise, maybe, just maybe, EDG can find, or LNG can find something to get them going. Baron is up. And they don't know this, but Xiaohao took a recall. There was no attempt immediately from LNG. A lot of Scryer's wards just went over into that pit for LNG to, or from EDG to try to spot out any attempt here. Now they're in a super awkward position for EDG.
Croco is fishing for a leave, who does manage to get the big boy scuttle, so all of that vision is going to be revealed for EDG. This will allow them to, as you can see, enter in through the bot side. Angel has been really good at finding flank angles in these fights, but you can see he's just completely disconnected from the rest of the team. So this Aurora is going to have a pretty hard time getting into the fight because of all of the vision surrounding this area.
Xiaohao will take a very similar position to last time, sitting in the brush inside of the pit. Croco half health by a single combination from Leave. Now ZDZ is on one side. He's trying to poke them out. Damage isn't quite there. This is going to be a 5-on-5 where we are going head on. Half HP between worlds comes out. 1XN will be forced away from the pit, but we're just having a standoff, and maybe Croco can find the Angel.
Oh, Angel! No!
No way. It's a 4v5. Can we see it? It looks like Quax, you may have prescribed it. We are going to Dragon number 7. A few too many mistakes coming in from EDG. And that will be Dragon Soul point acquired for both of our teams on the Rift.
You know how I've had a metaphor earlier about the pickpocket on the train, and he's messed up twice, and that was Leave. Yeah. Forget all of that. The pickpocket has like a little rat in his hoodie that's also trying to do the same thing. That rat is Angel, or he's a rabbit, because that's what Aurora is. That feels a little bit better. He's got a rabbit in his hat, trying to pickpocket me and steal my jewelry. Angel, what? How? So Angel goes in to flash. I think he really wanted to just try and burst down 1XN.
It was BuLLDog.
I mean,
it's unfortunate that 1XN also walked into it, but that was really just a focus to try to get Mel out of this fight. Oh,
yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah, that's absolutely brutal, because now, I mean, not only do you prolong the soul win condition as EDG, but you give gold over to LNG. You can see off respawns, they are playing up toward this top side. Baron is going to be the big prize that both of these teams are sought after, and with LNG being the ones to set up this deep vision, they can get a pick. You know it's right onto that objective.
Control of top side. LNG's moving in, getting some decent ward coverage deep into EDG's red side jungle. They're completely muscling them out.
ZDZ
has a teleport
isolated.
Into this. He's a bit tanky. This guy's got a lot of HP. He has the Black Cleaver. I'm assuming he's also got his Spear of Shojin. So he's got a lot of HP, and that's reflected, but that shield is going to go down. We've got about 20 seconds. Croco trying to go from one angle off the side.
Oh,
Xiaohao just... that felt like a six-pack moment.
I didn't see any pings.
Maybe they just
weren't looking.
There's
a control ward. There's a control ward right there, so they're going to spot him if he continues to go through mid. Is he just going to try and go around? Okay, it's Special Agent Xiaohao.
Observers are like, I don't know what's going. Why does Sheer have 10% HP? Well, what's going on over here? This might be the flank of a century, and this might be what Edward Gaming need to get them back into this series. An immediate engage onto 1XN. He is taken out with a cease and desist. Multiple members now. Sheer is finalized there. Missing is taken down, and the Baron will for sure be started by Edward Gaming. Maybe they don't even need that. They don't even have the grubs, but maybe they just go down through mid and take us to game number 3.
It's the rabbit for Angel. It's absolutely, though, the rat for Vi. He sneaks his way into the flank, and he tears LNG apart. 1XN goes down. BuLLDog is the only one remaining. There's 30 to 20 seconds on the death timers here. EDG, they've got to try and look for the end, and I think they'll be able to do it, Alk.
BuLLDog, he's got wave clear, but there are Guardian Angels still here. EDG will tie up this series. BuLLDog, you don't even got an ultimate to play around with. That'll be your flash gone. Hey, you wish you maybe were a little bit taller. You wish you were a baller. Maybe you had a rabbit who looked good. You would call her. EDG bring us to a 1-1 series here.
And, you know, you were kind of a prophet when you were talking about the jungle matchup being like an incredibly important factor in this series, because game number 1, Croco wins MVP, has a lot of really good plays on the Xin Zhao. Game number 2, Xiaohao wins EDG the game. That flank broke the ice that had started to materialize around EDG's win cons. He shatters it with his fists, and he looks to get his team to a game number 3. Alk, this series has been
Nirvana.
really crazy. Yeah, it's Nirvana incarnate. It's like we never left.
It's incredibly Nirvana coded. Now, I wanna just clarify that the flanks from Xiaohao have been a double-edged sword, right? We saw him try to make a flank earlier in the game, and that got him caught out, and then they lost Baron for that play. But then the back half of it, we got to see not only Angel, but also Leave finally take a really strong game, right? This was a game where we were kind of waiting for him to make a mistake. Was he going to dash forward and get blown up? The closest we got to that was Croco dashing over Raptor Wall and killing him in his mid-tier 1. Aside from that, it felt like EDG definitely played a much stronger game. Just this time around, maybe Angel not having the same impact that we would have wanted.
Yeah, no, Leave definitely had a much better game than he did in match number 1. He was much better positioned and was able to, I think, free hit in a lot of those fights. I do give a lot of credit, like, over to ZDZ and Xiaohao for creating that space at the same time. I think Zhui as well, with the Melio. We talked about, like, the value that this Melio is going to bring to the table, but just making sure that Lucian could sustain in some of these longer-term fights, I think, was really what pushed Leave over the edge to keep going, keep looking for those plays. Breath of Life be damned for the cleanse. Just get it for the healing and let this man's health bar dictate how aggressive he can go.
40,000 damage. Thank you, Leave. Those are the games you really sign up to try to get your AD carry on. If you are Croco, you are Madge. You have twice as much damage as enemy VOD. You still lose this game. Another game where EDG are able to eke out a pretty decent lead for a majority of it. This time they are able to close it out and grab themselves their first win of split number 2. And I think this just continues to raise the stakes here for this first series. This is a single round robin here in Group Nirvana. And if these are the top 2 teams of this group, then this matchup is going to determine your seeding once we get those 5 more matches finalized.
And even, like, looking further down the line, for people who might not know, like, the seeding is really important because once the end of split tournament does come through, like, if you're better seeded, you're going to be playing against the, like, if you're first seed from Nirvana, you're going to be playing against the number 8 seed from Ascent. So, like, this makes a really big difference. A lot of people have been talking about, like, NIP and WE in Group Ascend and how there is, like, a big chasm between the two teams. Maybe that has been somewhat thinned out because of the upset that NIP managed to find over IG, but being able to find a more favorable matchup at the end of the split is basically what's on the line here. And I think for LNG, they were a team that was so close to getting into Ascend. They really want to get this win, and EDG has been a squad looking for redemption, as I think a lot of people have been very up and down on this team because their performance, frankly, has been very up and down.
It's early on in the split, right? We're kind of casting aspersions to the playoffs already, but it's just a matter of expectations for these two teams. We kind of spoke about it throughout the series, but for LNG, immediate favorites. They went 6-0 in series score. They lost 2 games across that entire run. They went 3-0. They lost more games in that playoffs best of 5 versus WE than they had all season combined. And they couldn't make Group Ascend. And for EDG, yes, they were in Group Perseverance. They may have had an easier run, but they didn't even get to have the Group Ascend playoff match for themselves. They lost to an OMG with a rookie jungler coming in Rio. So both teams failing to make Group Ascend in their own different ways, failing to kind of live up to what these two rosters were, and even casting all the way back to 2025, EDG fell flat every single play-in series. Yeah. They were not able to beat a Ascend team moving in. They had to kind of maneuver around. They had to play against another Group Nirvana team to get into playoffs, and it was really disappointing to consistently see this team fail to get into Group Ascend.
Right, and then you add on to the fact that, like you just said, it's kind of a downwards trajectory of results here for EDG, where you go from playing against Ascend teams, not necessarily being able to beat them, but then you go up against teams that are lower than Ascend, and you're not able to beat them. So I think that EDG, at this point, are really just looking to course correct and get people back on board with this squad being able to punch above their weight class, being able to move up, even though the last year-ish, year and a half-ish has been a bit rough for this team when it comes to facing off against squads that are very strong on paper.
It's a long-term project. My question for EDG was, I was really confused when we brought in Jue, because Leave is kind of a journeyman. We've seen him before on Edward Gaming, and so him kind of returning to the team and the roster felt like a very similar story to a player like 369 coming back to TES all those years ago. And he's a different player than he kind of started out when he came into the league, but he still has some of those same tendencies. Losing Parukia, who had only played a month in the LDL before getting called up, playing on his like dream organization after them winning MSI in Florida in 2015, it kind of felt like, okay, this is the player that we're going to build around with a super veteran topside. And now that he's gone, kind of is like, all right, it's leave or bust. It's us trying to make not only top 8 in the playoffs, but trying to go further than that. Trying to get maybe a top 6, maybe a top 4. Nah.
Much deserved.
I don't know
Dude,
if I feel this
He won them the game. He won them the game. All right, listen.
Fair,
I guess. Could have been anyone, but then I think Xiaohao pushed that over the edge with that last play. I also do think, very quickly, for Jue in particular, similar to the rest of EDG having something to prove, Jue himself probably has something to prove here. I mean, he was on that IG roster, and they were very close to going to Nirvana a couple of times from split number 1. A lot of people were very, very low on that team in Group Ascend. So all of that effort, and he does get moved to a Nirvana team at the end of all of this. So he isn't able to join the rest of his companions from Winter Split in Group Ascend for Spring Split. And I do think he's kind of got something to prove to the audience, where he's like, okay, I am an Ascend support. I am worth that level, and I'm going to prove it here on a new organization with completely new faces. So I think that Jue definitely has a reason to really lock in for this split. And I'm pleased to see that we did get good looks from him with the Melio.
Yep. It's a little bit harder to show off on enchanters, especially Melio. So, yeah, good job for Jue. It's also really hard to try to take Mako's spot at the end of the night, but again, that's just the LPL, baby. That is the end of our Game 2 coverage here. We'll be back after a short break for game number 3 between EDG and LNG.